Stephanie Berthelot and the crew at SR Enterprise can handle it all, from sheetrock to texture to paint. Give Stephanie a call at 504-432-9284. SR Enterprise, where they spread the paint and you spread the word. Well, it's a great day to buy a house, is it not, Tricia Johnston?
It absolutely is.
It's hot outside, but it's pretty. No rain for the last few days, so I'm sure you're out there hustling the streets and helping homeowners and helping people that are both in the market to buy a house and those that want to sell a house.
That's right.
Awesome.
Easy.
Awesome. So I'm excited to sit with you today. We are friends. We've known each other a good little while, and I've admired the way that you carry yourself away from your business and in your business. So I thought you would be the perfect guest to bring by today and talk about real estate. That's a hot topic right now in our world here in Livingston Parish. So with all of that, welcome Tricia Johnston.
Thanks for having me.
So the first question I wanted to ask you today was in regard to Latter and Blum. I was familiar with this, but I would imagine some viewers aren't, that Latter and Blum and CJ Brown were always affiliated. But I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about how that name change took place and kind of familiarize people with the Latter and Blum Realty side of things that you work with now.
Okay. Latter and Blum has been around since 1916, and CJ Brown has been around since 1917. In 1995, Latter and Blum purchased CJ Brown. Since then, they've purchased Knowles Fry in Alexandria, Van Eaton and Romero in Lafayette, Moffett Realty in Lafayette. So they've been acquiring companies. We've always, since 1995, been CJ Brown, a division of Latter and Blum. But we were always the Latter and Blum family of companies. So they've decided, just because they were acquiring all these companies, instead of keeping the same name in each market for name recognition, they felt like Latter and Blum had established its own name recognition by this point. So they've decided, instead of being the Latter and Blum, each company division of Latter and Blum, to just be Latter and Blum. So we've always felt that way. It's a Latter and Blum family of companies feels like a family. When we have a company event, all the agents from New Orleans, North Shore, Lafayette, St. Lake Charles all come together, and it feels like a family reunion because we see these agents in our company all the time. So we've always felt like Latter and Blum. We've just now put a public face on it.
I see. So the service hasn't changed. Essentially all it is a name has went from one name to another. You're still getting, the same service that maybe people were used to with a CJ Brown. It's just the names just changed.
That's right.
I got
Same ownership, same realtor, same management, just Latter and Blum.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And essentially what I derive from all that is you have this big umbrella, and that's Latter and Blum. And underneath that umbrella, you have a bunch of companies. And one of those companies was CJ Brown. That's correct. So all it was a change there. And Latter and Blum, I was familiar with them from the kind of the commercial side of things. So I dealt with a lot of property management companies. They were the property manager for some companies that I dealt with, some larger apartments and things like that. So they have a good footprint in the real estate industry overall, but have always been affiliated, and so good for Latter and Blum, and I love the colors. The blue and white are really nice colors. So I also want to discuss you. So being a guy that has been in sales my entire life. Most salespeople can relate to the fact that salespeople recognize salespeople almost right off. Sales is not for everybody. It takes, like any field, surgery is not for everybody. It takes a special kind of person, and that ain't me. But sales is the same way. And that being said, most salespeople can recognize salespeople right off. Tricia is someone that has impressed me from the day I knew her and met her, and it's hard to put kind of a nail on exactly what it is about you that makes you special and makes you who you are. So I was trying to think of last night, how can I describe that accurately? And you know what? I really can't, because when people have that it factor, it's just kind of that it factor. You don't try to explain it. It's just who they are. And so happy to be sitting here with you, and I want to discuss you. And I'm very curious to know what led you into home sales to begin with. I know you've been in it, I believe, 11, 12 years.
No, it'll be 14 years in October.
Okay. And what did you do before that?
For about 20 years before I got into real estate, I owned an IT company. I did website development, promotional CDs, and I had a friend for a very long time who owned a real estate company. He's retired now, but I handled his website, but we were friends long before that. And he would tell me a couple of times a year, he'd say, you should get your real estate license. You'd be great at real estate. You're such a people person. You're always wanting to help people. And it had not occurred to me before he suggested that would be something I'd be good at. Being in the IT business, owning an IT business, I was in front of a computer all day, every day. And I knew I was getting burned out on that, but I didn't know what I was going to do, what I should do other than that. And he just said it to me enough that I believed him, because he had been in real estate for so long. I said, well, maybe I do have what it takes. Well, Katrina hit, and my IT company got hit hard because a lot of my clients were small businesses. So I found an IT company that would take over and take good care of my existing client base, and I just dove headfirst into real estate. When I do something, I'm 100% committed. I'm all in. So I got my real estate license, like I said, almost 14 years ago. And have been doing that ever since. And it went from a suggestion to a career path to a passion. I absolutely love it. And I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
And obviously real estate is typically a 9-to-5 job, I would imagine.
No, it's a 7-day-a-week job. It's long hours. That's just a fact, because you need to work around everybody else's schedule. But when you love what you do and you're passionate about it, you don't mind the long hours, because you get the reward of helping people, and people are so appreciative and grateful for the things you do for them. So it's okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting for the people out there listening and watching right now. It is not rare that me and Tricia would text each other at 10:30 at night, and something to do with paint or something to do with a question I have for Tricia, and not even think twice about it. And we don't even say sorry for texting so late, because we know we're up. So
it happens.
Yeah, it really does, and it's that's a trait that is in most high performers. 9-to-5s don't really exist. I tell people all the time, my real work doesn't start until after 5 o'clock, which sounds crazy. Yes, during the day I'm blowing and going, but after 5 o'clock is when I have time to finally sit down, get in front of the computer, and catch up on paperwork that day.
Absolutely.
That's something that obviously anybody that comes across you personally notices is your work ethic. And you said something very interesting there that I picked up on, and you said you don't really look at it as work. Mm-hmm. Woody Overton said the same thing to me a couple of weeks ago. He said, I think it was off camera, but I mentioned how much work it is just editing a podcast or doing these sorts of things. And he said, man, it ain't work to me. I love to do it. I mean, it's fun. And So while there's a lot of effort involved in selling a house or editing a podcast or those things, when you love what you do, it's not really work, and that's hard to explain to people. I say that to people all the time. Sales to me is just like breathing. It requires very little effort on my part to talk about something that I believe I'm helping somebody with, and then quote unquote convince them that what I'm telling them is right, and because I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. That requires a standard of ethics, and you certainly have that. I think something that comes to mind with you is trust. Your slogan, I'm assuming your slogan hasn't changed. So it's building a strong foundation of trust, one home at a time.
That's right.
Which is one of my favorite slogans that I hear. And the reason for that is that slogan speaks to who someone is inside. And trust is very important, especially when you're making the biggest purchase of your life in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
You're not dealing with a gallon of paint here. I mean, you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of, hopefully millions of dollars in some case, houses that one little mistake or one error could really cost money. So you've got a team, you've got people that you rely on, such as closing companies, and loan financing companies and things like this that you deal with that I'm sure you trust. And if you had your way, when you recommend people, it's people that you feel like if you were buying a house, you would use.
Absolutely. I would not refer somebody that I wouldn't use myself. And I realize when somebody refers me, I take that so seriously because they're not just putting my name on the line, they're putting their own name on the line. So if somebody refers me, my goal is not to just do a great job for them so that they'll be pleased with my service. I want them to go back to the person who referred me and thank them because they're putting their name on the line for me when they refer me. So I take that very seriously.
They really are, and it's almost I'm the same way, and it almost causes I hate to say stress, but you almost follow up more than the person that actually is getting the job done, whatever it is, because you want to make sure that, if Tricia Johnston asks me for a referral of some sort and I refer that person, if that person drops the ball, it's going to embarrass me because I feel like that's a reflection on me,
right,
to you. And even though you know me well enough that there's no way Jim had anything to do with that, I still get paranoid about that. When, if I'm going to speak up for somebody, they better do a good job and not throw me under the bus and those sorts of things. So I'm not surprised that you feel that way. I want to also discuss the process in general. So with buying a house, okay, this is something you do every day. In my world, I deal with paint every day. But if I deal with a homeowner that paints every 10 years, or you deal with a homeowner that buys a house every 15, 20 years, they don't know the steps like we do. And sometimes I actually have to stop and remind myself that, hey, I do this every day. That way, that question wasn't as crazy as I thought it was. So in your case, I would like you to kind of walk us through the steps, the process that you would advise someone who is new to the market. Maybe they're just buying a house and they have no idea where to start. Take us through those steps.
Well, the first step after they meet with me, I recommend that they speak with the lender and get pre-approved. And sometimes buyers feel like, well, we'll get pre-approved once we find a house. But they really need to get pre-approved in advance. First of all, because if we submit an offer, we want a pre-approval letter to show that seller that they've already got their financial ducks in the row. But the other thing is that somebody might get pre-approved for $250,000, but the next question they need to ask the lender, and of course I advise them on this, is what price point do we need to be at to have our monthly note where we want it to be? And that's more important than how much house do we qualify for, because you want to live in a house where you can still afford to save, travel, eat out for dinner, do things like that, and also be prepared for any little setback. Like COVID has been a financial setback for people, so you want to have that nest egg. So that's one of the things that's really important. So after they meet with the lender, especially for first-time home buyers, because investors do this all the time, they need a different type of guidance and assistance. First-time home buyer, I put together a first-time home buyer packet that I give to each first-time home buyer. And we sit down before we ever go look at houses and go through every page in this folder. And they come with questions, and I provide them with answers to questions they don't even know that they have.
Hey, this Local Leaders podcast you're about to hear with Woody Overton, creator and host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, is brought to you in part by Southern Oaks Title. From contract to close, Southern Oaks Title can take the stress out of your next closing. Give them a call at 769-5032 for your next commercial or residential closing. Southern Oaks Title. Close with someone who cares. Now get ready, because we're about to get real with the wolf himself, Woody Overton.
But I give them every step of the process. But the reality is it can be overwhelming. So I give them the overview of how the whole process is going to work when we first meet. And then after that, I walk them through each step so it's not so overwhelming. We break it down into segments of getting pre-approved, narrowing down the houses that you might want to look at. Then we look at houses, then the offer process. Each phase, I help guide them through so that it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you and I are so alike in the way we do things. I actually do the same thing, but in the paint world, I have plenty of folders and I fill them full of things. But the advantage to this, from our perspective, I would imagine you're someone, if you're buying a house, you want that.
Absolutely. That, to me, I treat people like I would want to be treated. Isn't that just the basic golden rule? But if my home buyers are young, I treat them how I would want my children to be treated. If they're my age, how would I want somebody to treat my sister? If they're older than me, how would I want somebody to help my parents and guide them through the process? So when you treat people the way you would want to be treated, or you would want your family to be treated, that's the golden rule, I think, is to just do for others that you would want to have done unto you.
That's right. And
very simple.
And yes, and it's valuable and it's rare, and we all appreciate you for that, of course. Now, with this folder, another point that I wanted to bring up is you're absolutely right. It is overwhelming to purchase a house when you've never done it before. Maybe you're not one of these people that, we've got friends that move out every 6 months and upgrade and all those sorts of things. And they're experts at it, but someone that doesn't do it every day, that folder is like gold. And look, I'm someone, no matter what decision I make on anything, it can be little things that most people would be like, what do you want a folder for? But I want to review information because I am a researcher. I don't make spot decisions. I just never have. I feel like the times that I've done that in my life have been mistakes. So when I make a decision, I mull it over, and that goes for anything from a simple question my wife asked me, and I'm like, let me think about it. I can't just tell you right now. And these are not major things, but it's just kind of the way I operate. I want to look at it. And so that's where the value in that comes in, but it's especially valuable in your field. And I don't know how many realtors do that or don't do it. I'm sure some that do and some that don't. But if you don't, I would recommend you do, because that is something that is a value to any homeowner.
And
for sure.
Buyers really appreciate it because they can refer back to it, because it's too much information to remember all at once. So they can refer back to it. And also, as we move through the process, they have a folder to put all their new information in as we're looking at houses. So, and it's not just first-time home buyers. I work with home buyers sometimes who haven't moved in 15, 20, 30 years, and things have changed. And so they appreciate the information, so they know, how have things changed? changed.
That's right. And it's a great thing that once they're done with it, they can pass that down. Maybe they have a friend that that is looking for a house, and you know what? Your business card's in there, and that's a great way to get a referral. And in addition to, hey, here's Tricia's information, call her. And so for the salespeople out there watching, you gotta innovate in those ways and do everything you can to kind of let people know you exist and you're out there. And of course, everybody knows you exist. So great job on that. And that's a great tip and something that definitely will stop from overwhelming that homeowner. I can really see that. I also want to discuss, you brought up pre-qualification. So this, in my opinion as well, and I'm a layman compared to you, but I know enough about the housing market to know that that's probably the most important process. And it's not because people want to get in your business and know your credit or anything like that. It's because they don't want to, these realtors don't want to put you on too much house or not enough house. Maybe you're assuming you can only qualify for a certain amount and it's double that. I mean, that, or maybe you want that $1 million home, but for whatever reason, your circumstances only qualify you for that $700,000 home. What is worse than running around trying to find $1 million house and then all of a sudden you don't qualify for it? It totally wastes the homeowner's time.
Well, even if, let's say somebody's looking at $250,000 houses, they haven't gotten pre-approved yet, they might qualify for that. But then once we look at their budget, I'm very budget conscious for my clients. Yeah. Once we look at their budget, we find out that $225,000 is really their place they need to be. Well, once you've looked at $250,000 houses, you're not going to like a $225,000 house. That's just a fact, Yeah. So I want them to get pre-approved. So we start looking, and even if they say, well, we'll go up to $250,000, I say, let's start looking at $225,000. Then if we don't find anything you like, we'll gradually increase and see where do we hit the point where we can find a house that you love.
Now, you brought up a good point there, and that's budget. Mm-hmm. Where did you learn some of your budget skills through? Don't you have some certifications or something, or you're affiliated with an organization that focuses a little bit on budget?
I am endorsed by Dave Ramsey. I'm sure you know who he is. He's got a radio talk show. He writes books. He does podcasts. So he is somebody who really tries to help people, no matter where you are in life, young, old, in between. He helps people get financial freedom by encouraging them and giving them the steps to become debt-free. And financial strain can strain every area of your life.
It'll kill you.
It can hurt your relationships. So I really love what he does to help people become debt-free, to give them the tools and skills because not everybody is great with money. But that's where he always says you have to have a heart of a teacher. And I really feel that I have the heart of a teacher because I want to educate and give knowledge to my buyers and my sellers and support them and what they're doing. And so I'm an information provider. But that's where I get my budget consciousness from, just trying to help people, whether they're a Dave Ramsey follower or not, doesn't matter. I want to help everybody stay on their budget track and not overbuy. I help people sometimes sell a house because they overbought. Once they got in, they found that it was a strain. And so now they want to sell and downsize so that they're not, don't have that financial strain of that too high mortgage every month.
I can tell you, and you bring up a good point there, and that financial strain is a massive problem. It can, it's probably the leading cause of divorce. Mm-hmm. Stress will kill you, and nothing stresses people out more than money. Absolutely. What I hear from that though is that you actually care, and you care about your clients and people that you deal with, and that is an important aspect of another when I was talking earlier about who this woman was. That's a part of her that you can just kind of tell. She doesn't have to know you to care about you, and that's special. And so with Dave Ramsey, yes, everybody's familiar with him, and there is no controversy with that guy as far as it's totally obvious that being debt free, or some people aren't maybe in a position where they can do that, but Tricia's someone you can go to when you're looking at that house, and she can kind of like break that down via the Dave Ramsey system and say, according to these figures, this is where you should be. She's not going to try to sell you, even if you're capable of buying $1 million house or a $500,000 house, she's not going to sell you one just to make more money. She's going to be honest with you. She's going to tell you the truth, and she's going to say, really, you need to kind of be in a 3, to be where you need to be in your opinion. And your opinion carries weight because you have some certifications there, and you're Dave Ramsey certified. And I think that's awesome. And that's something you don't get with every realtor. Those things are rare. So just yet another reason that you're special. So we discussed the switch from the name switch, and we covered kind of some steps there in the house buying process as far as pre-qualification. When you get to the point in the house, let's say I'm going to give you a scenario. Me and you were looking for houses. I find one, and I'm pre-qualified for it. It's all good, and we're about 3 weeks out from closing that house. What would you advise me not to do in those 3 weeks versus anything else?
Well, in my information packet, I provide a list of 10 things to not do when you're buying a house. And some of them are: don't change jobs, don't change banks, don't buy anything, don't make any large purchases, which is really one of the main things that buyers do. Because when you're buying a house, you want to buy furniture, appliances, all these things. And so you go out and buy those things, and then it affects your credit score. So I tell, my clients from the get-go, from our very first meeting, and I remind them throughout the process, don't go buy a new car.
You can't have nothing for that.
Co-sign for somebody. There's all these things that are very important, and it's things that they may not have thought about, and that's part of what my heart of an educator is. Let me tell them in advance, and sometimes you can see the light bulb go out and they think, yeah, that makes sense. I shouldn't do those things, but maybe would not have thought that buying a TV or furniture or appliances would have affected.
Yeah, so what's very important to remember is just because you're pre-qualified does not necessarily, it's not like you're pre-qualified and you have 90 days where that's going to exist. You're pre-qualified that day at that time. When you go, to close, they're going to basically check all that stuff again and make sure that they didn't make a mistake the first time. And when they're looking through all that, if all of a sudden you've got 4 credit card inquiries on there and approvals, that could probably blow you right off the closing table.
That's right. The day of or the day before the closing, they recheck your credit to make sure. And sometimes people think if they do that 5-year interest-free financing for furniture that doesn't count. It does count. It's still credit, even though it's interest-free. So, but just like I said, to educate, and that's what I do to let them know these are the things not to do. And if they ever forget, it's in their folder to remind them.
There you go. Very good. So we want to talk about here when, a buyer or a seller, either way, in your opinion, what should they value most in their realtor? Some people me personally, I think experience goes a long way. I would almost put character even above that, because sometimes you might have just became a realtor a year ago, but you might be a super smart, super motivated individual that has a high character, and so you can't really fault anybody for that. But what would you say would be something when people are choosing a realtor, maybe that they really need to look for?
Yeah, I think those things are very important. The other thing that I would say is to select somebody who's a full-time realtor. You wouldn't want to go to an attorney who has a day job and does, legal work on the side. You wouldn't want to go to a CPA who has a different day job, but they do accounting on the side.
What about a paint salesman?
You would not want to go to a paint salesman who does a day job and sells paint on the side. You want somebody who knows what they're doing. So the experience, the knowledge, but just being full-time is such an important thing. And I'd say, really, sometimes people just hire somebody because everybody knows a realtor. So sometimes when he says, oh, my cousin, my neighbor, my friend is a realtor, I would encourage everybody, even if they know me, interview a couple of realtors, at least 2, maybe 3 realtors, and see, is there a difference in the realtors, because all realtors are not created equal. And so I think that if they interview realtors, then they'll get that good feel, and they may end up selecting that person, but it didn't cost them a thing to interview several.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I would say full time, there's 4,000 realtors, I think we discussed in the Louisiana area.
Greater
Baton Rouge area. 4,000 realtors. There's not 4,000 full-time realtors. No. There's 4,000 licensed realtors in that area. Full-time is a very important aspect, because you're basically a priority to that realtor. When somebody deals with Tricia Johnston, yeah, you might, hopefully you're working more than one client at one time, but guaranteed you spend enough time being a realtor that everybody can be taken care of the way that Tricia Johnston would service those clients. And when you're part-time, sometimes that becomes limited. Nothing wrong with that. But for my money, if I'm looking at the biggest purchase of my life, I want someone that kind of does that all the time. And that way I know that I'm getting every single piece of hay is being turned there. And this person is really covering all their bases with me. Sporting Center in Denham Springs is your one-stop shop for team sports equipment, school uniforms, and promotional goods. Conveniently located next to the Antique Village since 1977. Sporting Center, your business means everything to them because your name rides on everything they do. So
yeah, you hit on something there. That's really one of my goals, is to make each client feel like they're my only client that I'm working for. If I can do that, I've accomplished my goal. And it really makes me feel good when somebody will post something about me on Facebook or something, and another person will say, wait, I'm not your only client. and I'm like, yes, mission accomplished,
And that's right.
Yeah. So if I can do that. And then something else you touched on earlier, I wanted to say, you mentioned about salespeople. I have never considered myself to be a salesperson. I consider myself to be in the service industry. I'm providing a service. I'm not trying to sell you a house. I'm trying to provide you with the information you need to buy or sell a house. So I never go into it looking at as I'm a salesperson. I don't want to sell anybody on anything. I want to provide the service that they need. And if I meet with the seller and we look at their numbers and I tell them, if you don't have to sell and it's not a good time for you, then why don't you wait until the market turns around or your finances turn around? I'll tell somebody if it's not the ideal time for them to sell. Some people have to sell because of, job changes or something like that. But I'm 100% honest and try to help guide them with what's the best decision for them or their family.
Yeah, and you're a problem solver. That's what you do.
I'm a problem solver.
You solve problems for people. They need a house or they want to sell a house, and that's an issue, and you come and you solve that problem for them. That's what I tell a lot of people too. I say, technical word is salesperson for what I do, but initially, I solve issues. I solve problems. That's what I spend my time doing, and I hope I've done a pretty good job of that.
You've helped a lot of my clients solve a paint problem.
I hope so.
You have.
I hope so. So we covered that base, and so basically, before you close, don't do anything crazy. Don't, put those purchases off. So you get to the closing table and everything goes smooth. And I've bought this house, and I say, thank you, Tricia Johnston. You saved the day, and you're worth everything that everybody said you were worth, and you're the greatest things in sliced bread, all those things. After that, how important is it? Because we just discussed there's 4,000 realtors in the area. Referrals are an important part of what you do. The reason is, number one, the amount of folks that are in the industry is so much that you kind of rely on referrals, because referrals are basically someone vouching for you. You know, if I referred somebody and I said, you know, you're selling your house, you need to get Tricia Johnston to sell it. That's me saying I vouch for Tricia in that respect. So who would you consider like your biggest referral sources, your people that that you just kind of gel with, not from a friendship standpoint, because you gel with everybody on that level, but from a professional standpoint, where does it seem that, you know, your referrals typically come from the most?
Well, the large majority of my clients are either repeat clients or referrals. So that's a huge compliment. That's the large majority. But my new clients will come from people who deal in the financial industry, financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys. Somebody has a family member that passes away and they have a home to sell. An attorney will refer those people to me to help them sell that family home. So people who deal with, because their clients trust them. And so if they refer a realtor, they're going to trust that that person's going to do a good job. Nobody's going to refer me and put their name on the line if they don't think I'm going to do a great job. And then the other area that I get a lot of referrals from are people who deal in the service industry, like a paint, you know, you speak with, when you sell paint, you're selling maybe to somebody who's fixing their house up to sell it. So handyman, a contractor, people are working with these people because they're getting ready to get their house listed for sale. So I get a good bit of referrals from service people who help people with their home projects. Yeah,
and that's a huge aspect of your industry, anybody's industry, really. If people aren't taking advantage of, you know, so you've got to make sure people know that, hey, you know anybody looking, you know, because some people are different than others. I am someone that I always want to be the superhero in the room, so to speak. So I always want to be the one to fix anybody's problem. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't know why I'm like that, but I am. So if someone's sitting there and they say their air conditioner's broke, I'm the first one to jump up and say, I know a guy or I know a gal. But some people aren't like that. I'm not going to use my wife's name, but sometimes my wife will say, well, I'm not a salesperson, and let them go get their paint somewhere else. And I'm like, no, are you crazy? But you know, she's not. Wendy is not someone that is going to do that. But she has gotten so much better at sharing Facebook posts for me and these sorts of things as we've been married our you know, 23 years now. So one thing I would say is when you're dealing with a realtor, if you're happy with their service, make sure that you mention that to your friends, even if you're not like me and you want to do it because you want to look like the superhero or whatever, the guy that saved the day, and those sorts of things. Another thing I want to discuss with you, so now somebody's bought a house, but I'm coming to you and I'm someone and I want to sell my house. And I come to Tricia Johnston because I know she's great at what she does. And I say, Tricia, I want to sell my house. I'm moving, you know, out of state. And you say, okay. And you go to my house and you're looking around that house. Okay, you're doing that first walkthrough. I know nothing. I have no idea what my home is valued at. I have, you know, do you solve those problems for me? Are you going to be able to tell me, I think you can list this house for this amount, those sorts of things?
Yeah, what I do during that first walkthrough is I try to give them advice. So I'll walk through and I'll tell them what cost-effective measures they can take. I'm not going to have them spend a whole lot of money fixing the house up that I don't think they can get a return on their investment. But they can paint their house, especially if there's bold colors.
They can.
Especially if there's bold colors. I tell them, paint neutral colors, because the lighter colors are going to make the rooms feel bigger, but also it's going to be neutral. It's a clean palette, so when that buyer moves in, they can make it their own. Declutter, deep clean, things that maybe we don't clean when we're living in our house, ceiling fans, light fixtures, air return vents, clean those things, because a buyer's going to be looking at the nitty gritty that maybe we don't look at day to day while we're living there. Declutter. Get rid of things. You don't want to have to move it anyway if you don't want it. So you want to declutter. These are things. Spruce up your landscaping in your yard. These are things that don't cost much of anything, but can really make a big difference on the presentation of your home.
Huge. And the value of your home. Sometimes that can jump. I know that painting, and you know, getting into my wheelhouse a little bit, I've read studies where you can invest, you know, paint the inside of your house and maybe every room. Let's say these colors were so outdated it was just a joke, or they were just, say they have 3 kids and all the walls are scratched up and this thing just needs to be repainted. Well, you may have to invest, you know, say $2,500 to repaint the inside of that house, but it may make not only a difference of say 6 or 7 on your selling price, but it may also make the difference between it selling. Some prospective homeowners, I would imagine, will walk in and they're calculating that, even though they, you know, there's some cases where people, you're exactly right, want to make it their own and they're going to repaint it anyway, no matter what color it is. There are some, when they see that the interior walls and they're scratched and all that, the husband's sitting there and he's calculating in his head, oh man, I'm going to have to pay $3,000 just to get it repainted. So I'm going to take that off the selling price. So instead of making 6, you cost yourself 3. And so I totally agree with you there. We actually have I have to give this to you before you leave, but it's a little fold out chart that we just came out with that actually has the top trim colors, the top wall colors, and the top ceiling colors all on one little piece of paper. Well, it's not a piece of paper, it's cardstock, but you know what I mean. But it's a sample card, and it's a great handy thing. I have literally dealt with people in the past where I've told them, paint your walls this color, and their house will sell in 3 days. And it's because it's the popular color right then. Grays were in, they're still in. Whites are really in style right now. Everybody wants just white walls. I'm a color guy. I love color. I love everything orange, green, and blue. I've got that New Orleans style with me. But a lot of people now are doing it all white. You know, white trim, white walls, white ceilings, and they're selling. And so consider that if nothing else. Leanne's Flooring by Design, conveniently located on Florida Boulevard in Denham Springs. Leanne can service all of your flooring needs. Give them a call for an appointment at 523-7004. At Leanne's Flooring by Design, they stand behind everything you walk on.
It makes a big difference because a lot of times a buyer who's looking at a resale house, they're also looking at new construction. So when they go into that new construction home with all the white trim, white walls, and it looks all nice and clean, when they come in your house, it's a resale house, and now it looks all neat and clean, nice and clean with the white walls, white trim. So it makes a huge difference. And I know some houses might have an odor from smoke or pets, and y'all have an odor neutralizer that y'all can put in the paint, and then it really helps. Yeah, and that's been I've used it for several of my listings, and it really does make a big difference. You have different scents, lavender and vanilla. Yeah, it's really a great. I love whoever came up with that idea was right on target.
Yeah, and you know, they used to make those, interesting side note here, they used to make those and it would last like a week and then it would go away and it wasn't really worth it. This company that makes them now, we at Farrell Calhoun are very Dave Ramsey-ish, and we don't waste money in our company. And so they test everything before they bring it in, because they're not buying nothing until they see if it works. And they tested that product. They put it on a wall for like a year that just stunk. And you still smell that smell like a year later. So we sell it a lot to property management companies because people smoke in apartments and stuff like that. It'll block that, but it's a great product. And it even comes in a neutralizer where there is no scent for people that may be scent conscious, and so there's no scent, but it will mask the smell. How they do it, I don't know, but they do it and it works. So it's safe to say that any of those things are you know, an investment. It's really investing into not only the speed in which you may sell your house, but maybe the price. Maybe it would help with that a little bit, or at least keep people from coming off of the price.
But I'm always, again, budget conscious. I don't want to just have them spending money to get this, you know.
Absolutely. It's got to make sense.
It's got to make financial sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And So let me ask you, you have so say you come to my house and I'm saying, I want to sell it. And then I'm like, I may just try to sell this house myself. I sell paint and I'm pretty good at that. Maybe I could sell my house, and thinking that I could really do that. And then, so why would you caution homeowners from the for sale by owner type of process? What is it that a realtor can bring to the table that maybe a homeowner may struggle with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just having somebody that knows how to dot the I's and cross the T's. They really set themselves up for legal situations to follow this sale. I personally know of 2 people who did for sale by owner who got sued right after the closing for something that I think if they would have had a realtor, it would not have happened. And so they ended up, I don't know how the first one ended up, but the second one, they ended up spending $28,000 to settle a lawsuit, all because they wanted to save a couple of $1,000s listing their house for sale. And the sad thing is, they'll call and say, look, we're going to try for sale by owner. If we don't sell it, we'll call you. And then after they have the lawsuit, they call me and I say, I'm not an attorney. You don't need a realtor now. You need an attorney. And it's sad, but they didn't know. Also, it ends up, I think, costing, even if they don't have a lawsuit, it can end up costing a for sale by owner more money selling it on their own. I represented the buyers at last fall who purchased a for sale by owner. And what he did was he priced his house so high. His mindset, he told me, is, I know it's overpriced, but if somebody likes it, they're going to submit an offer. Well, it sat on the market for 9 months. And my buyer clients wanted to purchase the house. The seller agreed to pay the representation fee, so my clients didn't have to pay a realtor fee. They ended up getting a $330,000 house for $300,000. So the seller never did know what it appraised for, but it appraised for $330,000, and my clients purchased it for $300,000 because he had it so overpriced. He was ready to sell. It had been there for 9 months vacant. And so if he had priced it right to begin with, met with a realtor, saw what the comps were, saw what a realistic price, he could have sold it for what it was worth. So it can really end up costing some money. And then the other thing I would say is exposure. If you have a realtor with an aggressive marketing plan, they're really throwing every net out there to make sure that every buyer looking in that price range and every realtor showing in that price range knows that house is for sale. And that's not the case with a for sale by owner.
That's exactly, and you took the words right out of my mouth. What I was going to say was reach. What you get out of dealing with a realtor, in my opinion, other than the many other aspects of what you bring to the table, which is knowledge of the law, for example, but you have a reach. So there's people that Tricia deals with that they have Tricia on the lookout all the time for certain things, and you as a seller, you don't have that kind of reach in that kind of market. I hear a lot in my world, and bless these people, but they'll tell me, I'll match colors for them, for example, and okay, I know color. I've been 21 years of doing this, and I hear it a lot where they'll say, I think this color is better than, and I'm like, okay, and I go with that, and that's their opinion, but let me tell you, you can't compare someone that's involved in color once a year to someone that's involved in color every day of their life for 20 something years. Same thing with realty. Same thing with realtors. They are people that are in this industry every day, and they might can sell your house in 3 days time. You contact them, they might have someone that was wanting a house in that neighborhood, wanting that list, that particular size or whatever. So I think it would be absolutely insane to sell probably your biggest asset without using a professional to do it. But you bring up a good point with the law. I hadn't thought about that, but that is an aspect that is also very important. So we, guess what? Back in March, we had a pandemic kind of hit, and it changed all of our lives, especially us as salespeople. In a lot of ways, we kind of had to reinvent the way we do some things because, in my world, I couldn't just pop up on someone's job anymore. I couldn't just walk in an office. Let me ask you what have you done to kind of adjust to that? So I know there's a lot of tools out there like Zoom and those sorts of things, but if I'm someone that is a buyer right now or someone that is a seller right now, and I'm like, I can't do this right now because we're in phase 2. Mm-hmm. Is that true or false?
That's false. I think it's just a different way of doing business. So the main thing for me is I just meet people where they are. Last week, on Thursday and Saturday, I was meeting with 2 young couples who are getting ready to start their home search. And we were going to do our initial meeting with their packet of information. The first couple preferred to meet via Zoom. So I met with them last Thursday evening. We got together on Zoom. I went through the whole packet with them. Now, when we meet the first time to look at houses, they'll get their packet, but now they have all their questions answered. They feel informed. They're ready to go. The second couple wanted to meet in person. So on Saturday morning, I met them at my office. They had their masks on. I had my mask on. We sat at a conference table 6 feet apart. But we went over the packet of information. They left with it and they got all their questions answered. So it's meeting people where they are. Some buyers are comfortable looking at houses in person, wear our mask, put our hand sanitizer on when we get in the car. Other buyers don't feel comfortable. Maybe they have a higher risk level. They have underlying health conditions. So they'll choose the houses they want to see. I go do a video tour for them and I send them the video tour. And then if they have questions while I'm there, I send it to them while I'm there. They watch it and then they ask their questions. So, maybe she wants to get a closer look at the floors, or he wants to see the inside of the attic, or what is there storage in the garage? Answer all those questions. So it's whatever people's comfort level are while being safe is what we do.
Yeah, you're going to do whatever you need to do to make them feel comfortable and help them. And video tour, wow, that's pretty impressive and a great idea. We've all had to kind of adjust to that. Thank goodness for Zoom. I mean, I tell people all the time, what if we wouldn't have, if this would have been 10 years ago, they had video conferencing, but it wasn't like Zoom. It wasn't user friendly. These were things you had to be like a scientist to even operate.
Let me tell you about video tours, though. They're a lot more used a lot more often now because of COVID, but I've been using them for years because I have clients who are moving here from out of town. They're relocating here for a job. They can't fly in every weekend and look at houses. So I've been doing video tours for out of town clients for a long time. So now I'm just expanding that. Same thing, I use video tours now for my listings where I used to not do that. That's been something new that I've done with video tours. Buyers love it. They can look at the video tours of my listing online and not have to go tour it in person initially. I always feel like the video tour, the professional photos that I take, all those things are like a first showing. And then by the time somebody schedules an appointment to see one of my listings, they've already looked at it online, taken the video tour, probably did a drive-by. So it's almost like a second or third showing when they show up to look at the house in person.
So you use professional photos in
Absolutely. It makes such a difference. I do not use a cell phone. No, I use a professional photographer because I'm a realtor. I'm not a photographer. So he takes all the pictures and it really makes a huge difference. I use it online and print advertising. It really on my flyers that I make. So it's just one of those other things of going above and beyond to make sure I exceed somebody's expectations instead of just meeting them.
And on that point, so you just brought up a good point for a seller. So Tricia Johnston offers a lot of options to sellers relative to the things that she does, like the professional photos. How do you promote them? I mean, do you just go stick a sign in the yard and say your house is for sale? No, Jim.
No, I have a whole marketing plan that I go over with sellers, and that's part of the importance of interviewing more than one realtor. Because if you're interviewing a realtor and they don't come with a marketing plan, that means they don't have one. And if they don't have a plan, it's not going to go well. So I lay out, and one of the things I love about my marketing plan and presenting that to a seller in person is that when I leave, all my promises to them are in writing. And so I am standing behind what I put on paper. They can always go look back and say, she promised this, check, she did it. She promised this, she did it. And I'm not one of the realtors who has a team. Some realtors have a team of 8 or 10 realtors that work for them. I have a great support staff at my office and my manager and admins, but I'm an individual realtor without a team. And so and I feel very passionate about that. For me, I'm not saying that other teams aren't perfect for them, but for me, being an independent realtor, an individual, means that the promises I make to you as a buyer that I'm going to do for you, what I'm going to do for you as a seller, I'm the one that's answering your calls, your text messages, and your emails. I'm the one that's going to be answering for the promises I made. I'm not going to have a team member or assistant answering your calls. I'm going to be the one that says, yes, I promised this and I delivered.
And that's a huge thing. It's a separator is what it is. I tell people a lot that, Farrell Calhoun Paint Company is who I work for, but guaranteed I work for me. Farrell Calhoun Paint is really who I rep. And so what you're getting from me is me, and Sharon Williams don't sell me.
You know what that goes back to when you and Woody Overton were talking about pride. It's the pride that you have in the job you do for people, that you have pride in the paint you sell, but more importantly, you have pride in the customer service you deliver. And that's what I feel. Yeah, I have the pride that if I'm going to tell you I'm going to do it, I'm standing behind that.
Best advice I ever had was basically, don't ever tell a customer something you can't do, and don't ever tell a customer something you don't do.
Yeah.
Best advice I ever had. And both of us believe that way, and that obviously speaks to you and my character on that. So social media. You get on social media and you promote these houses. This has become a huge thing in the realtor market. Look, I can't pick up Facebook and click on it without seeing 900 realtors posting 900 different houses. And it's made it really convenient from a buyer standpoint, because you can kind of get a peek and you can call Tricia and you can say, hey, I saw a house on Facebook, 8115 Oak Street, and I'd like to go take a look at it. And that makes it, that helps everybody. That helps the realtor, because, here's one they're interested in. We can go check it out, and you can kind of get an idea of what they're looking for. I would imagine that when you're selling a house for somebody, you're going to promote that house on Facebook. You've got a website, okay, and you're gonna promote it on that website, and you're gonna take all the steps, bottom line, and you're gonna do everything you can to sell that house because you care, and because you are a realtor, and you want to help these people, and you want to get their house sold so that they can move on with their life. It can be a stressful process. I'm sure that I can't imagine dealing with that type of industry to where you're dealing with clients that are stressed. In my industry, it's usually, if people are coming to us and it's not because they want to paint their house, it's usually a problem is why they're painting it. And I tell our guys, you've got to keep in mind that these people are stressed, and you have to handle them accordingly. So it takes someone with your temperament to really be successful. So let's talk success a little bit. I know you would never bring this up, but I will. You're a pretty successful realtor. We talked earlier, 4,000 realtors in the Baton Rouge area. You rank in the top 5% of that market. I haven't done the math on that yet, but I would imagine that's a very limited group of people. It doesn't matter whether you're a full-time rep or a realtor or a part-time realtor, you are in the top 5% of all realtors in the Baton Rouge area. What a feather in your cap, but I'm not surprised when you do the things that we've talked about today. You're going to see results from that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And you have what I talk about this sometimes in my podcast. I call it a process. Mm-hmm. Everything has a process. Nick Saban, who is not the most popular man in the world here in South Louisiana, but I'll tell you what, he's a winner. And one thing Nick Saban tells his recruits when he sits them down is he says, we win here. And if you want to win, all you got to do is follow the process. You do your job, and we're going to win. Because the process, if it works once, it works all the time. It doesn't, if you don't deviate from it. I've done the same things, Tricia, for 20 years, and I succeed in what I do. You've done the same thing probably. You know, we've added to it. We've learned. We've watched other people maybe and learned, but your process probably doesn't change a whole lot from what works. You don't change the stuff that works, and that's huge, and that's something that I hope this podcast does get across to people that are maybe in their own industry, whatever it may be. When you find something that works, stick with it. Don't change it. Don't deviate from it. You can add to it, but those principles. Those principles you never really have to change. Now, I did something. I do want to do this first. I want to do a fill in the blank, and I didn't. This is okay, but I'm curious about how you would answer this. So, I'm going to give you a sentence, and at the end, I want you to fill in the blank. I'm successful because I'm.
I think passionate. I'm real passionate about helping people. Passionate about real estate. I don't know if you saw the interview with Dee Dee Bro on Monday night when she retired. They interviewed her and they asked her that question, and her answer just struck a chord with me. She said, besides the people that have helped her, because nobody's successful on their own, and I agree with that 100%. But the three things that she attributed to her success were pride, purpose, and passion. When she said that, I was like, amen. That's exactly what it is. If you keep in mind always your purpose for what you're doing and keep that passion, don't lose your passion for it, and take pride in what you do, you've got it made.
You really do. And you know, passion is I use that word a lot. I'm nothing if not passionate, trust me. But it is probably the most important aspect of leaders is passion. You're a leader in your industry, and you're a leader because of your passion, and everything to me branches down from that. So if you have the passion, everything else just kind of falls into place. And so I love that answer. And I would have said passion, and I would have said I am successful because I'm honest. You have an honesty about you, not just I'm not going to lie to you. You have an air about you that, you know, you're not slick.
That's how I live my life. You know, the way I run my life is the way I run my business.
I would also, you know, from the outside looking in, I would say that is a big part of your success too. It's just another way of saying it's just because of who you are, and that makes you successful. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun for a second now that I've done grilled you. I like to do fun facts on my podcast every now and then.
Okay.
So I came up with some fun facts on realty. I just thought were kind of neat. I was going to share with you.
Okay.
And we'll kind of bring McHugh in on this because I like to bring him in at the end and wake him up. So both of y'all, the most expensive listing ever in the United States was a 157-acre plot in Beverly Hills. Okay, this is interesting. Which originally listed at $1 billion. The plot eventually sold at foreclosure auction for $100 million after accumulating over $200 million in debt.
Oh, wow.
How about that? But it listed for $1 billion. How about it'd be nice to sell $1 billion. Yeah, $1 billion.
It was
listing.
overpriced.
It was definitely, yeah. And I guess it accumulated the debt in taxes or something, maybe, or whatever. But I found that interesting. The average person, how I'm gonna ask you first, how many times do you think the average person moves in their lifetime?
What are we talking about?
Like moves from house to house.
A geographic area? Or?
No, just moves. Owns, not necessarily owns, but, owns.
Well,
throughout their
statistically
lifetime.
In the South, it's usually average 1 to 1.5. Nationwide, I'd say 3.
I would say it's probably higher than that. I'd say 5.
12.
Oh, 12.
12.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to caveat that. I'm not sure if that's how many times a person moves in their lifetime from when they were kids or after they own the house.
Adults. Yeah.
But
And you could go apartment. If you include my apartment.
oh man, I moved 12 times from 20 to 21.
Right.
So, yeah. And lastly on this, in the 1920s, you could order a home from Sears complete with everything you would need to build it. Over 75,000 houses were ordered in total. So you know how you can order the complete kit sheds? Back then, you could order whole houses from the blueprints. Yeah. Little cute little houses, I guess. But I found that interesting. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming on today. What I want you to tell all these people is how can they, so they're in love with you now, hopefully, So how can they find you if they want to find more information on Tricia Johnston? You have a website? What's the address
I do have
there?
a website. It's triciajohnston.com.
Okay.
And then I have a Facebook page just search for Tricia Johnston Realtor on Facebook, or we're actually Facebook friends, so they could reach me through your Facebook.
There you go.
And then, of course, if they want to call or text me to set up a time to have a conversation, my cell phone is 225-754-2000, and I'll be glad to answer questions. I think knowledge isn't worth anything unless you share it. So I love sharing my passion and knowledge about real estate.
Yes, she does. And what I'm going to do is at the end of this video, I'm going to in the comments section, I'm going to put links to all Miss Tricia Johnston's social media, as well as how to get in touch with her on the telephone. And hopefully, if you're interested in a house, you'll give this lovely lady a call. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
coming
having
by.
me. It's
I
my
appreciate
pleasure.
you. And I really enjoyed this. This has been one of my favorite podcasts so far.
Oh, thanks. Mine too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I do want to invite everybody, if you want to follow me, like me, subscribe to my YouTube, you can do so. You can just search Chapman's Paint Place Podcast on any of my social media. That'll bring you to my pages. I have numerous on Facebook and YouTube. And just hit that subscribe button. Share if you liked this. If you like this podcast, please share that. If you're interested in getting sponsorship information, you can reach out to me at 225-445-5520, or you can email me at jim@paintpodcast.com. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time, and keep leading.